Hello and welcome to Scarves Around the Funnel Friday preview. My name is Mark Donaldson, and having Jim Spence on recently to preview the Dundee United game elicited such a huge and varied response that I think on the whole it was pretty successful. So I thought, you know what? Let's go back to the BBC days of yore and let's get another one of my favourite people on, one of the top broadcasters in Scotland. But I have to start, as I introduce the wonderful Richard Gordon, by finding out how he is, because Sir Alex has officially renounced anything to do with Aberdeen, and he's now Team Hearts. He will be at Tynecastle on Saturday as a guest of Heart of Midlothian Football Club. And as Derek McInnes's new best friend, he has replaced Alec Ferguson's old best friend, Richard Gordon. How are you feeling about that, Richard?
Clearly, Sir Alex is just doing some care in the community. He's coming out to help you boys see if you can do a wee bit in this title challenge. But let's be honest, you know as well as I do that Heart of Midlothian will never, never replace Aberdeen in the heart of Sir Alex.
He's a glory hunting bastard now, by the looks of things.
Hey, he could do anything he wants. He has the very much the credit in the bank. I hope he enjoys the game. I'm sure he will. I've seen him out and about a couple of times, and most recently at the tail end of last season, the playoff game between the Airdronians and Cove Rangers, when he became an Airdronians fan for the day on that particular afternoon. But he still loves his football, and he's still incredibly sharp. And look, whoever gets to spend time with him on Saturday afternoon will just have a brilliant time.
And he's a former teammate of Uncle Ali at Falkirk back in the late 60s. And you've obviously spent a lot of time with Alex Ferguson. You've mentioned that, and you love it, and he loves spending time in the Northeast as well. I was fortunate enough to spend a day with him for a feature on Sky Sports News, and we took him back to his old school in Govan, took him to the hairdressing department at Govan High School, simply because I wanted to start the piece was hairdryer treatment. That was too easy. But he loves his football, and he's going to be at Tynecastle on Saturday, and that's what Richard and I are going to preview today. We'll do 20-25 minutes like we did with Spencey. I want to start by I like to analyze what's in the background of people's Zoom calls. Now, I've kind of got a dichotomy. I've got the might have won the league and might have won the cup top of 85, 86, and I've also got Believe, which we actually did something in 05, 06 when we qualified for the Champions League qualifiers. You've got one solitary thing. Glory in Gothenburg, the night Aberdeen FC turned the footballing world on its head. You won a trophy that doesn't even exist anymore. Why are you still going on about it?
If I'm honest, it was only because I watched your first episode with Spencey and I saw all of your books. I have moved 3 pictures of my kids from that shelf and put a copy of Glory and Gothenburg there just to wind you up, because I know you and Alan Preston and other Hearts fans like to talk about it being a trophy that no longer exists. I mean, clearly they had to retire it because Aberdeen so dominated back then, and of course are still the last team to beat Real Madrid in a European final.
Yeah, it was around the time that there was last an away win in a Hearts Aberdeen fixture as well. What is going
It's
on?
phenomenal. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I think it's 14 since Aberdeen last won at Tynecastle. It's 14 since Hearts last won at Pittodrie, if I'm right. I mean, the Aberdeen win goes all the way back to May 2017 when Derek McInnes was, of course, the Dons manager. So it's phenomenal. There's been a few draws in the fixture, but Hearts have been pretty dominant, largely. Tynecastle, and of course, that is the venue on Saturday. So I'm not necessarily holding out an awful lot of hope from an Aberdeen point of view.
Well, we'll get to that because I remember a game between Hearts and Aberdeen in 85, 86. I think it was the first live Scottish game shown on Scotsport when Aberdeen took the lead and Hearts equalised late on. When we were going for the title. So it's always been a fixture because Aberdeen around that time very successful with Fergie, who had that mantra about everybody hates us and going to the old firm. And it was a proper decent rivalry. And I think to this day as well, Richard, people say, oh, loads of people in Scotland would love Hearts to win the title outside of the old firm and Edinburgh. But I saw a Vox Pop done outside Pittodrie. Aberdeen fans are kind of Some are, some aren't. What kind of rivalry do Aberdeen fans see with Hearts?
I've spoken to friends who have said that they don't want Hearts to win the league. Partly for some of them, I think it's the Derek McInnes factor because he was such a popular manager with us for such a long time. Just that one solitary major trophy, the League Cup final, of course. There was one season we kind of got close. It was only a few games from the end of the season that Celtic eventually edged it. So I think there is maybe that factor, and I think it is just that whole thing of the look. There is a rivalry in terms of Hearts and Aberdeen in
Yeah.
terms of the pecking order, isn't there? And I mean, clearly it would be an incredible thing for the fourth biggest team in the country to win the league championship. I thought you would have bitten at that immediately. Because Briskett, Alan Preston does that all the time. Yeah, look, I think out with the Glasgow too, and clearly the resources and the advantages and everything else that they have. Hearts and Aberdeen are right now, or I say right now, maybe not right now, but over a period of time would be seen as the next two biggest clubs in the country. I think there's no question about that. So there's an element of jealousy. I'm sure that it is Heart or Midlothian who are there this season and not Aberdeen. I've always enjoyed. Always enjoyed fixtures between the two. I mean, I don't know how many I've seen over the years, but many, many games. There are quite a few that immediately spring to mind. And I think probably the one which I think brought the best atmosphere I have ever experienced inside that incredible stadium at Tynecastle was that one in May 2006 when. There you go. There you go.
It was
Paul
rockets.
Hartley. Oh, I just remember. I mean, we were obviously it was the old main stands, and you'll remember the broadcasting point there.
Yeah.
You were sitting a few feet below the chairman, the directors, and they had a little barrier just in front of them. And if my mind isn't playing tricks, Vladimir Romanov was either standing on the ledge or very close to standing on the edge, certainly right behind us.
Yep.
The noise that night was just absolutely spine tingling. And I remember talking to Paul Hartley, and he was saying he scored the penalty, of course, that they won it, and Hearts clinched that place in second spot in the Champions League qualifiers. And he said that the best he's ever experienced. That was an amazing night. And everyone knows that I'm an Aberdeen fan. That was one I was prepared to give you that night, just because of that whole season and everything then that had gone on. The incredible drama that your club had brought to Scottish football that season. I didn't grudge you winning that one and getting that second place.
Who do you want to win the league this season?
I mean, it just, I have absolutely no qualms in saying that. And it is, as much as anything, it's 40 years, well, going to be 41 years since anyone other than Celtic and Rangers won the league. And look, there's another thing that some Aberdeen fans hanging on to. They don't want that taken away, that they were the last team to win the league. So, look, I fully expected to see out my broadcasting career and probably my life being no one other than Celtic and Rangers winning the Scottish title. Heart and Midlothian can do it this year. I will be absolutely delighted.
Who will win the league?
I would love to think. I mean, look, you're in a strong position. 4 points clear, 10 games to go. Celtic obviously got the game in hand. That's up at Pittodrie. Every chance they'll win that. I think it's going to come down. I think that the fixtures between now and the split are decent for Hearts. So you should, despite all the injuries that have been piling up, you should amass a fair number of points then. It's then just simply going to come down to those head-to-heads, isn't it? After the split, Celtic Rangers, Celtic Hearts, Rangers. And right now, I just think it's impossible to with any real confidence, say which of the three. And I think it is three. I know people will point to Motherwell. I think the fact there are three clubs ahead of them, I think that's just too much to do for Motherwell. So for me, it is down to the three. Up until the last few weeks, you're looking at Rangers and saying that they're the most consistent, but that's suddenly, 3 draws in the last 5 matches
away from home, yeah.
for them. Hearts have had a couple of defeats and crucially lost that one at Ibrox. And Celtic, of course, were going along very nicely in terms of the results under Martin O'Neill, and then they lose at home to Hibernian last weekend. So I think nerves will kick in. I think it'll be a mental test more than anything else now, between now and the end of the campaign. So I don't know is the answer. I really don't know.
No one does, and that's what's made it so much fun. Let's say fun. Okay,
it has been fun. I know it's not. Isn't that crazy? You've spent your whole life dreaming of seeing your team challenging for the league title, and when it happens, you spend most of your life shitting yourself because you just. It's incredible. It just, the mentality changes, but it's, Mark, hey, you just, and all the other Hearts fans, soak this up, enjoy it, savour every single moment of it.
But you know what they didn't tell us about this is when your win against Falkirk is in the bag, and even then, that was a bit nervy, but we got there. You got to go through it again for an hour and a half the following day, or, like the week before, for 3 hours. 2 90-minute games if Rangers and Celtic kick off after you at different times. So you got to go through it all over again. I felt exactly the same as, maybe not Ryan McGowan did, who was on the podcast this week, but when it went to 466 minutes of added time at the end of Livingston against Rangers, which was ironic, given that there was talk in the build-up that all the added time was going to come at Celtic. You go through it again. It's great at the end. But I was driving up to Vermont last week, and I just had a feeling in the pit of my stomach, Celtic are going to score it, Kilmarnock. They're 2-0 up. You can't... Celtic of old, when you and I used to be on the beat back in the day, you're talking the Larsons and the Gascoignes at Celtic and Rangers. The fear factor is gone from them, as it was when Fergie was at Aberdeen in the mid-80s. But they still have this thing, whatever that thing is, that they find a way. But Hearts have started to do that this season. And one of the things, Richard, I don't think has been spoken enough about, we certainly haven't mentioned it on the programme, Scarves Around the Funnel, is Motherwell. And you've just quite rightly said they've probably got too much to do. But it's different this year. I think Motherwell could help Hearts win the league. And here's why. I'm looking at last season's top 6. Celtic and Rangers, obviously Celtic well clear, only dropped points in 7 games. Rangers weren't great, but finished second. Hibs had a really good spell that took them third. But after the split, you're not worried about games against Dundee United, Aberdeen or St Mirren, the rest of the top 6, if you're Celtic and Rangers. Now, you've got Falkirk on the plastic pitch, who've done really well. You've got Hibs, who could be anything on any given day. And you've got Motherwell, who are the best footballing team in the Premier League right now, or the Premiership. So that's why I think this top 6 is slightly different. And I don't think you're going to have to run the table. Some of the teams might, but I don't think Hearts will have to because of the teams elsewhere in the top 6. Is that fair?
I totally agree. I think Motherwell have, it just took them a little bit too long to properly get going. There were too many draws in the early part of the season. Even if a couple of those draws had been turned into wins, then I think they would have been live contenders, but they will absolutely have a part of it. I totally agree. I think they are the best footballing team in the top flight this season. They're an absolute joy to watch. They will definitely, there's no question in my mind, they will take points off the 3 rivals for the title. Falkirk Stadium also. You just do not get an easy. John McGlynn, who you and I know well, John has done a remarkable job there. And they could easily cause an upset or two. And you're spot on about Aberdeen. I've seen them a couple of times this season when I've really wondered what on earth they were doing. And other games where you're thinking, wow, actually, when they're on song, they too can hit the heights. So I think that the post-split fixtures are going to be an absolute roller coaster. I can't wait. Absolutely can't wait.
Hearts Aberdeen this weekend. I saw Tom McIntyre go down injured with a hamstring problem at Tannadice on a pitch that just was very little. It was horrendous. No grass or whatever. That game on Tuesday night. Is it still if Celtic don't allow it to be called the old firm in Glasgow? What's the deal with the new firm? Is that still allowed up in the northeast?
Yeah, I've not called it that for quite some time, I must admit. There is a rivalry there. For me, it's never been the kind of rivalry where you wish the opponents ill. I've always quite liked United, and I think part of it was because they did come through same kind of time as Aberdeen did. And it was Aberdeen and Dundee United who were
It was, yeah.
unquestionably the best teams in the country at that point. And United just struggled to get it over the line, whereas Aberdeen became serial winners. United obviously won a couple of League Cups and they won the league in 1983, but they didn't quite push on and do what Aberdeen did. So I've never had an issue with United, and I've seen some brilliant Aberdeen United games.
That
That
wasn't one of
was
them.
one of the least memorable encounters on probably the worst pitch I've seen since the baseball ground in the 1970s,
Oh,
down
yes.
at Derby. So it was like, hey, it was very, very difficult for both sets of players to offer any kind of real quality on the night, and they certainly didn't. And I mean, the only plus from an Aberdeen point of view was the point, because having lost the previous 7 away matches in all competitions, they desperately needed to halt that. But it was. And I do wonder. I mean, we'll talk about this, but Peter Leeman's been making a lot of changes, and I think anyone who did the full 90 odd minutes and advice on that pitch, it'd take them a wee while to recover properly from that, I would think. So it'll be interesting to see what selection he goes with come the weekend.
Well, right underneath the Dundee United nil, Aberdeen nil on the BBC website, BBC Sports Scotland, it says watch Dundee United versus Aberdeen highlights on BBC iPlayer. I click on it and it says this content is not available. Now, that's clearly because I'm in the United States, but I've got a funny feeling in the UK there were no highlights apart from Nisbet missing an
Um,
open goal and camera hitting the post. Was
yeah. Actually, okay, you mentioned Van Camera. He had a couple of
He was all right, not bad,
really
right?
strong runs. Yeah, I kind of like what I've seen of him so far, but no, utterly, utterly forgettable. And Aberdeen move on.
So the last time that Aberdeen were successful at Tynecastle, this is their lineup, and I'm going to read you the Hearts lineup afterwards. This seems more of a, yeah, that's an Aberdeen lineup. I remember that. That doesn't seem too long ago, even though it was. Joe Lewis in goal, Shea Logan, Andrew Considine and Ash Taylor, Graham Shinney, Mark Reynolds, Peter Pawlett, Johnny Hayes, Adam Rooney, Niall McGinn, and Kenny McLean. That's a fair lineup at 1-2-1. Adam Rooney and Anthony O'Connor. This is the Hearts lineup that night. This is just like PTSD all over again. Jack Hamilton in goal, Andras Struna, Leonard Soa, Aaron Hughes, Prince Boabin, and Christian Novak, Arno Jum, Alex Cholis, Isma Gonçalves, Jamie Walker, who was sent off, and Don Cowie. Now, two things there. One, that's a world class Scrabble score if you put it all together. And two, there's probably three of those Hearts players, maybe four, if they were in a lineup that non-Hearts fans could recognise. And there's probably only six or seven that Hearts fans could recognise. Before we preview Saturday's game, what kind of decade has it been since then for Aberdeen? Because we know it's not been a great decade for Hearts.
Um, well, he obviously had the departure of Derek McInnes a couple of years after that. Dave Cormack taking over as chairman. You know, winning the Scottish Cup last May stands out like a beacon in what has been a fairly dull and dismal time. I mean, if there are memorable moments throughout that period of time, they've generally been the kind of moments you prefer not to remember in terms of upsets and shocking defeats, and just that continual. We're in it again right now.
Mhm.
It's become an annual thing. The churn, the manager goes, an interim takes over. Usually Peter leaving, he stays in charge for a wee while. Somebody else comes. I mean, it's just been so. No, it's not been. It's certainly the last half decade has not been one to remember. And obviously things kind of sour a wee bit towards the end of Derek's time, but I mean, I pine for the kind of quality that you've just read out from that Aberdeen team.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the front three of McGinn, Rooney, and Hayes. You got Kenny McLean in behind. Just after that, Ryan Christie, of course,
Yep.
was there as well. And you've got good, solid, dependable defenders. You've got excellent goalkeeper in Joe Lewis. And, there are very few of those boxes could be ticked by the current Aberdeen team, and that's probably an understatement, I would suggest.
Hmm. Still looking for that new manager. That statement this week from Dave Cormack suggesting there's probably going to be an appointment, but not until the summer. I'm actually commentating on Friday on the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Totally random comment to make right now until I ask you who I'm commentating with.
Right. Um, well, I mean, clearly it could be a whole variety of people. It's not Derek Ray, is it?
Nope,
He's not
nope.
involved in any way. So we're talking a football man, are we? We're not talking Lutz Pfannenstiel, are we?
That's exactly who we're talking about.
Wow, the Aberdeen sporting director, who I gather is on the continent as I speak, potentially scouting new talent.
I've commentated a
Wow.
few times with Lutz,
Okay.
and yeah, we
Give me
spoke
your
about.
give me your thoughts. I know you're supposed to be asking the questions, but give me your thoughts on Lutz.
This is a weird situation that we're now in. Post COVID, you've spent God knows how many hours in Radio Scotland studios, and people have been at the games. And there's probably been many occasions where you haven't met those people for ages. I've never met Lutz. I've never
Wow.
met Mario Suarez. I've never met Luis Garcia. I've never met Diego Forlan. I've met Casey Keller. These are all the people that I do the games with, but I've never met Lutz. So my opinion of him is based on the chats that we have off air. Seems a lovely guy. Seems to kind of want to be the. He's not shy. Wants to maybe be the center of attention, which that's why I wasn't surprised when I saw him in the dugout at Ibrox. Um, yeah, I mean, you speak to people over here, a lot of people have got some really good things to say about him. Other people don't have as much. It depends on your personal experience. I've never had an issue with him.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
yeah.
commentating with him. He just, maybe this is wrong. He kind of strikes me as someone who maybe wants to be the main man. And if he can't be, then the sporting director role is something that is prominent. And you've got to remember over here, sporting director's much higher than the head coach, not
Yeah,
so much
yeah.
in Scotland. So yeah, he'll be remembered by Aberdeen fans based on this appointment. That's the
This
bottom line.
disappointments, yeah, and what happens in the summer? Because I
Yeah.
think there has to be a major overhaul once again in the summer. That some of the signing policies and the individuals that have been signed in the last couple of years, in particular, I mean, they certainly have not added to the quality of the squad. They have made little or no impact in the most part. Some have already been emptied. Others will certainly have to be. And he has spoken since joining Aberdeen about trying to get more of a Scottish, a local identity in the team. So I'll be really interested because for the most part, we've been signing players from the continent in the last little while as well. So I think, yes, the appointment, because Dave Cormack has made it clear that it's up to Lutz. He has identified the preferred candidate. And this has been talked about already, but there are reasons that are actually out with Aberdeen's control that have caused a delay here. I would think that if everything goes to plan, then it will, as most people have been talking about, Eric Horneland, who will be taking over, and it would appear that it will be this summer. But whether it's the right thing or not to identify that individual and then wait and essentially write off the second half of the season, potentially the Scottish Cup might save him. Whether that's the right thing or not. And then, of course, if he ends up not coming, then they have to go to second choice. At that stage, might the second choice already be in a job or have something else lined up? You're going to the third choice. It's been a very, very frustrating period. And it's just added to the uncertainty that has surrounded the club for the last few years.
I like Lutz a lot, and one thing I can guarantee you is there'll be no stone left unturned.
Yeah.
It might take longer than you hope, but with Aberdeen and the the managers that you've kind of had, I mean, Jimmy Thelin got his cup win, but obviously that wasn't enough to save him. I'd rather, from an Aberdeen perspective, that every single thing was gone through and analysed and appointing the right coach, rather than just appointing someone to appease the fans who are pissed off that there still isn't an appointment. Anyway, I digress. That was one of the tangents. It's Hearts Aberdeen on Saturday. What are we getting from Aberdeen? It was like a 4-1-4-1 without the ball at Tannadice on Tuesday night, but Olasanya providing width. Bilalovic, he must be so frustrating because he's got something, but you don't see it very often. You expecting changes for Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Kenan Bilalovic, you don't see him very often. I mean, he
True.
hasn't had as many opportunities as some of the others. But as I mentioned earlier, I think they've got a lot of players in various positions that are very similar, but none of which have shown any real consistency. Carlson's gone now, of course, and I mean, he had all the tricks, but I mean, he wasn't a team player and he contributed very little other than a few penalties.
He was all fart, no jobby, as Stephen Presley might
Yes.
say.
Well, Stephen Presley nailed it. It's as if that quote was born just for Jesper Karlsson.
10 games at Tynecastle that have been won, 4 games at Tynecastle that have been drawn. That's Hearts' record this season and no defeats. On the road, coming down the M90, Aberdeen played 14, won 4, drawn 1, lost 9. We're at the stage of the season you get funky results. Right? Livingston getting the draw against Rangers, having been 2-0 up. Hibs winning at Celtic Park. Aberdeen fans aren't travelling south with confidence. Is it more hope than expectation of getting something, or do they fear this game, do you think?
I mean, I think there's an element of it is like the Aberdeen away support, home and away, actually, because the crowds have been remarkable this season, but their away support, given the absolute dross they have had to watch at times, has been phenomenal. So, I mean, I think there's almost that sense of defiance. Like, yeah, it's been absolutely awful. There's every chance it could be awful again, but we're going to be there. We're going to be there. We're going to support the team. But they haven't won away from home since the 6th of December. They haven't won at Tynecastle, as we touched on, in coming up for 9 years. They haven't even scored away from home in their last 6 matches since Bilalovic scored at Celtic Park. So, I mean, all these things are conspiring against Aberdeen. But as a Hearts fan, all these things are
like
going
to
into
hear
the
all
mix,
of that.
making you think,
No,
oh my God, it's all got to end sometime, hasn't it?
Abiola
Yeah,
Dauda was the last player who played for Hearts to score the winner at Pittodrie. I mean, it's
I
getting
saw
ridiculous.
that. Yeah,
It's getting
yeah.
ridiculous. It's funny you mentioned attendance because I've always had this thing. I don't know if it's just me, but back in the day, I would always look who's got higher attendance, Hearts or Aberdeen. Not Hibs. It was because we always did. But it's funny. There's actually an account on Twitter, and it's at Attendance FC. That's the account. Unofficial account of Hibernian FC attendance numbers for all games. We help make it simple for obsessed jambos. Established season 25, 26. Yeah, we've got more than 20,000 that we can get in the East. I don't care. Shut up. Um, it'll be a full house. 600 odd Aberdeen
Yeah.
fans coming down. Um, I think look, Aberdeen are probably going to keep it tight, aren't they? They're going to try and keep it tight at the start. Do you think that'll be the game plan against the Hearts side that were slow out? They have been slow out the blocks a few
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
and
yeah.
against Falkirk in the first half, they weren't really at it. And I know there were some extenuating circumstances with injuries and whatever. But what's Aberdeen's best chance of a game plan for Saturday?
Yeah, look, I think it has to be that. I think given the way the team has been playing, given the run of results, given the away form, given the record at Tynecastle, you're not going to come flying out of the traps and try to go for it right. I don't think they've got the players or the confidence to do that right now. Perhaps Peter and Tony will come up with something in a tactical sense to try to surprise Derek McInnes. So I think Derek will probably be across most options that Aberdeen might have. So for me, yeah, keep it tight for straight Hearts. Now, maybe you can get a dead ball. Maybe you can get, nudge yourself a goal in front. You do that. Hearts fans are nervous. Wow, it becomes even more nervy situation at that point. So for me, that is the best and possibly the only chance that Aberdeen have. My fear from an Aberdeen point of view would be if Hearts get the early goal, then that further dents confidence from an Aberdeen point of view. It gives Hearts that momentum, the crowd, the stadium very much on their side. And I think under those circumstances, it becomes a very difficult afternoon. I mean, I think you could probably sense from pretty much everything I've said that this is not a fixture I hold much confidence ahead of. And with Celtic to come the following midweek at Pittodrie and then the cup tie at Dunfermline. Look, it's a different kind of nervous anxiety that from what you're experiencing right now. But yeah, it's generally speaking, it's not a joy. I'm watching and following my team right now, I have to say.
It's funny you mentioned that Dunfermline game. We're of a similar era of watching and working on Scottish football. I remember Heelhouse and Van der Ark at East End Park back in the day. What would that be, in the early 90s? Would it
It
have
was
been
80,
when
no,
late 80s,
89.
early 90s? Yep, there you
Yeah,
go.
it
And
was,
they made an impact there.
well, that was Heelhouse's debut, and he scores an overhead kick after, what,
Yes.
6 or 7 minutes, gets a second one soon after. And then the following midweek, he and Charlie Nicholas run right and score a magnificent goal against Rangers. And there was a couple of years there where, I mean, that partnership of Hillhouse and Nicholas, and the fact that Aberdeen had signed a Dutch World Cup international striker. No, that was amazing. But wow, I mean, you had me welling up at the thought of Hayes, McGinn, and Rooney, and now I'm almost having to have a lie down at the thought of Hans Hillhouse and Charlie Nicholas.
Good. The reason I brought that up, because we as Hearts fans, and every fan of every football club, will have grounds that you used to love going to and grounds you used to hate going to. Now it's flipped. And Aberdeen was, and I'm looking at the results, and the Hearts won 1 of 6 against Aberdeen in kind of late 80s, early 90s. And it included a 4-1 thumping at Pittodrie in the Scottish Cup in 1990, which we were lucky to get away with just a
I
3-0
remember it.
deficit.
Yeah.
There was a 5-0 we went up there when Scott Booth got a couple in Heelhouse, and we got thumped 4-1 at Tynecastle when that bastard Heelhouse again. But then we had a spell where we loved going up there, winning 4-1, Neil McCann in 97, winning 5-2 up there. Remember that? McSwagan got a hat trick. It was weird. So the miserable memories of kind of Pittodrie were replaced by the great memories of the kind of some of the 90s. And now we're back to it's black and white memories of the last time we won there. One of the weirdest games I think I didn't commentate on this game, but I watched it, and it was a midweek game in 2023, and Hearts were 5-0 winners. We're 5-0 up after an hour,
Mm-hmm.
4-0 up at half time. I think we had 4 shots and scored 4. It was like everything we hit ended up in the back of the net. Do you remember it?
I was just reminding myself of the scorers. Yes. Wow. It was 4-0 at half time.
Josh Ginnelly, Michael Smith, Lauren
Yeah, no,
Shenton.
it was almost, I mean, it was almost the nadir of how bad Aberdeen were at that point. But yeah, I remember that and just thinking, wow, I mean, doesn't that tell you everything you need to know in terms of how bad performance has been when you're actually relieved that you escaped with a 5-0 defeat? Because that could have been anything that day.
Well, yeah, it could have been just because we were so clinical, but we played
Yeah.
better in other games and won by 1-0 or 2-1 or so. It was just one of those weird games. And the games this season, the first game on the Monday night, we were talking earlier about atmosphere. We need that atmosphere. That was a Derek McInnes. Fuck him. Let's just get stuck right
Yeah.
in about it. But if you had a decent striker that night, you would have scored a couple
Yeah.
of goals. Big Yengi's missed a couple of sitters, has he not?
Oh, yes, I remember. I remember the one from what about 5 yards out, right in
Oh,
front of goal. Yeah, yeah. I just thought my recollections from that, and I remember it was you say it was that first weekend of the season, the Monday night. There was a Hearts just looked powerful for me that night, and they looked stronger and more determined than Aberdeen. And I think as the weeks progressed and Hearts kept, because obviously you'd had a great start in the Premier Sports Cup in terms of winning games, scoring 4, I think, in every match, and you brought that confidence into it. But it was after that you started to build that momentum. I mean, I look back actually to my notes because I remember doing the one in November where Aberdeen inevitably won at Pittodrie. I think the first league defeat that Hearts had suffered, and during the course of this season, Aberdeen had hardly any chances that day. I think
yeah,
we
that's
only
right.
had like 2 or 3 in the first half, nothing in the second half. And Hearts battered Aberdeen in the second and then kept missing. And Meatov made a couple of great saves. So it's, I mean, that kind of thing can happen. Hearts
Yeah,
could
sure.
be utterly dominant on Saturday. Aberdeen might sneak the goal.
That
I think my feeling is that might not happen, but it's a possibility.
I also remember that game for two things. Cammy Devlin captained Hearts for the first time, but more importantly, that was the first time in the league we played without Lawrence Shankland. And people were saying, "Oh, no
Hmm.
Shankland, no goals, is it?" But you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
We should, how we didn't take anything from that game, I don't know. And that would be the fear for this week. Probably the only fear from a Hearts perspective is that the fans get frustrated because we don't create enough because Aberdeen are ultra defensive. But I think we saw last week against Falkirk, there's two types of frustration from any fans. There's audible and there's quiet frustration. And the quiet frustration was last week, and that helped the players. They didn't feel like, "Oh, shit, I need to get rid of the ball as quickly as possible." But without Shankland, we worried, and we still do. And he's going to be back. We hope his target is the Motherwell game, which is the final
So
game
that,
before
yeah,
the
yeah.
split. Last question to
It,
you, and sorry, and you go.
I was just going to talk about the injuries. I mean, that could have a key factor as well, couldn't it, Mark, in this
Good.
next little period. So you've got Shanklin. Devlin is due back round about that time, or is it a little
No,
bit
yeah,
later? For
couple of weeks. No, a couple of weeks from now.
No,
He's
he's
going to be
okay,
back
right?
for
He
the
should be.
Killie game on maybe Dundee.
Stuart Finlay is going to be a big miss, quite
Yeah, but we've got
clearly.
Jamie
If he,
McCart, and there's been some Hearts fans have
yeah.
been saying, you know what, McCart, Finlay's made a few errors. He's been great for us. Don't get me wrong, but St Mirren away wasn't. He's made a few individual errors.
Hmm.
I just think he needs a rest, and he didn't train all
Hmm.
last week and then gets injured. Jamie McCart's been the ultimate pro. I don't think that weakens us much at all. I'm trying to put
Yeah,
a
but
positive spin on this, but it's Stuart Finlay and his relationship with Halkett. Yeah, I'm trying to put a
Kingsley's
band-aid on
also
this.
out right now, isn't he?
Who's that?
Kingsley, he's also out
Think, but he's the
right now.
backup to Harry Milne,
Yeah.
he's our
Yeah, but
part-time
he's also
captain.
someone who could play in central defence if required.
Oh, we've
You're
got
then
plenty.
looking at
We've got
yeah,
plenty
yeah,
centre
okay.
backs.
Well, okay, Steinbender, I suppose, could clearly
Steinvender,
come in and
Frankie Kent,
yeah,
McEntee's hopefully back soon as well. But Shanklin's been the one we've missed.
yeah,
But we
yeah.
we have had someone who I've been very impressed with this season, Claudio Braga. But I wanted to end by asking who has been your most impressive Hearts player from an opposition standpoint this season.
You've mentioned them both, and I'll say Braga because there's a, and I know I will not be the first person to make this comparison, but he does remind me of Rudy Scatchel, just in terms of how he gets around the park, the relationship he instantly seemed to build up with the Hearts fans. And I've got to say, one of my highlights of the season has been the Braga song. I mean, it's just the first time I heard that and realised what it was. And actually listened to it and thought, oh my God, that is just brilliant. And I love it when, fans get a lot of stick for all sorts of things. See the supporters that came up with that. And then, I mean, obviously everybody bought into it. It was just amazing. The other one, and I think he has been outstanding, is Harry Milne. I've
Amazing.
got a soft spot for Harry. He
He's one of
left
your boys, isn't
Cove
he?
Rangers.
He's a Cove
Well,
boy.
yeah, I mean, a local boy, and I know that at Cove they recommend him to various people at Aberdeen at various points. In the end, Harry left the summer that I joined for during that time I was with Cove. He went down to Partick Thistle. He did really well there. He was very quickly winning their Player of the Month, and then I think he won the Player of the Season for Thistle. And then he got that move to Hearts. And I must admit, I did wonder how much game time he would get, and it took him a wee while to get into the team. But this season, and seeing him playing on the right as well,
Yeah.
quite a lot of the time. Yeah, he's and his contribution recently, and in the Falkirk game, in the Hibs game, just really important assists, challenges, and he has got just an incredible drive, a will to win. I just love watching Harry. There's something about him. Looks a little bit dishevelled. The socks are down, but a really, really talented player. So I think he's just been so good for you boys.
I love little phrases that you come up with that make me think. You spoke about Dunfermline in the Cup. Socks down, that's Tosh McKinley. And a similar style, is kind of unheralded, signed him from Dundee
Yeah.
and expectations low. Of course, that was back in the day where you had to move to Rangers or Celtic to get a Scotland cap. Mike
Mhm.
Galloway, Tosh McKinley, and all these players. But look, I said 20, 25 minutes, and I'm way over that. I could talk all day with you, and I just want to say on behalf of all the Scottish football fans that listened and still do on a Sunday to Sports Sound. Thank you for everything that you, and you're not old. That's the thing. You're having the time of your life right now. You've still got the Scottish Cup that you can go and touch in the Aberdeen boardroom. Thank you for everything that you've done for Scottish football, and what an achievement that was on Sports Sound, for such an unbroken spell to do as many weeks and years as you did. Now that the dust has settled on you leaving, how do you look back on your time, full time at the BBC on a Saturday with Sports Sound?
Yeah, look, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's more than anything, and everyone will experience this as you get older. The passage of time, it just seems to go whizzing by. I mean, I cannot begin to comprehend that I did 30 full seasons doing that program, and it's various different guises over the years, but
Hmm.
it was just a joy. And I think probably the last, what was it, 10, 12 years, however long we were doing open all mics, that period between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon was just the most intense, exhilarating live broadcasting that I've done. I just loved it, absolutely loved it. But I think it came to the point. I think I was happy that I could make that decision on my own terms. I was coming back home. There was a kind of lifestyle change. All my kids were grown up and had deserted me. So, but you know, well, the plan was always to head back up to the northeast. As it turns out, I ended up working up until last year. The BBC were brilliant. They asked me to carry on doing Sundays, which was fantastic. So I'm still very much connected. I do some midweek stuff. I've been involved in lots of other things as well. So it's all that I think has allowed me to look back fondly on those 30 years and not actually miss it
Hmm.
that much. It was kind of strange the first couple of Saturdays, season, that 22-23 season, um, not either going into the studio or going to a game and putting the headphones on and being Sports Center presenter. But you kind of, you just move on. You move on in life. What is lovely is that even now, I still get people just come up saying, "Look, we just loved it. Thanks very much. It was great listening to you all those years." Sadly, now more often than not, it's, "Oh yeah, my dad or my granddad. They loved listening to you for all those years." I went, "Hi, cheers, thanks for that." But no, it was a joy. But it's something I'll always look back on fondly. Um, some great memories, and some, more than anything, some brilliant people worked
Yeah.
with that I had so much fun with over the years. And that is not just the people I worked with, but also the listeners. I met so many of them over the years, and no, it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But as you say, life goes on. This has been the most remarkable Scottish football season in all my years of broadcasting, and I just cannot wait to see what happens over the next few weeks.
Okay, let me end it with this. Recently, you got back behind the microphone and did a TV commentary, and hopefully, there's more of them still to
Oh,
come.
there
But
is.
the time that you did your last TV commentary before that, I'm going to take you back to 1998, Saturday, the 7th of March, Tynecastle Park. Heart of Midlothian 4, Ayr United 1. Gilles Rousset, Gary Locke, Gary Naismith, David Weir, Stefano Salvatore, Paul Ritchie, Neil McCann, Steve Fulton, Thomas Flugel, Colin Cameron, Jim Hamilton. What a team that was. Hearts went on to win the Scottish Cup that season. So I tell you what, let's end this by doing a virtual handshake. You lie down to us at the weekend and ensure that Hearts win the league for the first time since 1960, and I'll shake hands virtually right now that you'll win at Dunfermline, and we'll arrange for you to lift back-to-back trophies. I don't want you to win the Scottish Cup because there's still that rivalry, but if it means we lift the league championship and unfurl that flag, you can have the Scottish Cup in back-to-back years. Can we shake on that?
Perfect. Let's go for that. And
Wonderful. There you go.
because I'm not as spiteful and hateful as you are, I would just like to reiterate that I fervently hope that Hearts win the league and all the very best for the
Okay.
rest of the season.
I'm not letting you have the final say on that. I wanted Aberdeen to win the cup last year. I just don't want you winning back-to-back cups because it's something that we haven't done in a There's always that one thing that Aberdeen and Hearts fans can, oh, we did this first, oh, we did this first. We had the first all-seater stadium. Well, I don't want back-to-back. Aberdeen winning the cup last year, brilliant. It was great for Scottish football. Celtic didn't win it, magic, but not back-to-back years. But I'm prepared to make an exception this year. I'll put up with the Aberdeen fans saying you've never won the Scottish Cup in back-to-back years, if it means that we get the league title, and because we've shaken
Yeah.
on it, then it's all
I
good.
mean,
It's
I mean, to be fair, Mark, and I know you want the last word, so you'll have to come back in again. It's all very well winning it twice, but of course, we in the past have won it 3 years in a row. So winning it twice isn't really that much of a deal for us.
I got nothing. You win. As long as we win on Saturday. Richard, thank you.
Good luck. Good luck. Pleasure.